Is there a team with more opportunity to go to the Super Bowl than the Bengals, and they just feel like they keep on fumbling the bag? It always feels like they're a day late and a dollar short on fixing something they probably should have fixed a year ago. This year, it was both the receiving core and the defense because, like, for a few years, it was the offensive line. They fixed the offensive line. They have some receivers under contract. It just felt like there was always, and then there's always an injury that gets thrown in there as well because, of course, there is, some kind of funding. Oh, hey, we got to go ahead and now build a facility. It just feels like this is a team that, like, they just realized they're an NFL team and that they have to compete with other NFL teams to keep their players happy. And, like, oh, wow, we have a star quarterback in Joe Burrow, and we made it to the playoffs, and we have new fans. And so maybe we should make our quarterback happy, and maybe we can get back to the Super Bowl or at least the playoffs a few more times, right? Because, like, we don't want to be totally irrelevant, right, guys? Right, guys? Right, guys? No, they don't care. They don't care. But it seems like they're starting to care, right? It seems like Burrow's made them start to care. They paid Ja'Marr Chase. They finally paid T. Higgins. They could have been way ahead on that deal. And honestly, I think T. Higgins did them a favor. I think the fact that they were negotiating it at the same time as they were negotiating the Ja'Marr Chase contract felt initially like that was a weird situation, and it was negotiated by the same agent, but it seems like T. Higgins did them a favor. I think T. Higgins got way more on the open market. To be fair, he was tagged. So there were, like, negotiating limitations on it. You're going to be becoming a free agent next year. Obviously, they're not going to tag you a third time, right, guys? Right, guys? No. Just because it would have been very expensive. At that point, just pay the man. So T. Higgins got tagged a second time. They do an extension, at least in, like, name only. They were going to tag him anyway, but they do the extension with him and Chase. Listen, I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they have those two dudes paid. Their receiving core is very good. You're going to keep Joe Burrow happy. You have a high-end quarterback with high-end receiving talent, which means, listen, as long as those three guys are on the field, you can win almost any game. There's not a lot of defenses that could beat those three guys if they're on the field together. Now, you do want your offensive line to be solid. We'll talk about that in a bit. And you also want an okay defense because you don't want teams outscoring you again. Like, that was the problem last year, right? They were getting a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. They were doing well. They were scoring. You know what the problem was? They were getting scored on. And so they fired Lou Anarumo. It wasn't working with him anymore. I think he was okay at coming up with something as long as he had a lot of money to spend on veterans, but he was not super good at developing talent. I mean, Dak still started to show a little bit last year, but I think, like, you need more development than one or two players. So this year, they fire him, they move on, they bring in a new coach. Al Golden of Notre Dame actually was with the Bengals a few years ago, so it feels like a very incestuous hire. That's not the issue, right? I have no idea. Usually I'm very skeptical of D coordinators coming from college, but we've seen a few of them right now being okay in the NFL. Mike McDonald, who's currently the head coach in Seattle, was, I believe, a college coach when he came to the NFL. So, like, college is getting a lot closer to the NFL. It's becoming an easier transition, at least as a coordinator level. And this is a guy who's familiar with the NFL. Like, he was a position coach with the Bengals. He was also an assistant coach with the Detroit Lions prior to that. So it's not like this guy has no experience in the NFL and doesn't know how it operates. I digress. There's a bigger issue on the horizon. The Bengals have to figure out what they're doing with their DNs because they've kind of screwed up the contracts with both their first-round rookie pick, Shemar Stewart, and their veteran defensive end, Trey Hendrickson, who they've been saying, oh, we're going to give you more money. Don't worry about it. We'll extend you. And then they kind of keep on waiting and dragging this out. And he watches as guys like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, everybody else is getting paid but him. And, like, listen, those are top-of-the-end guys, but, he performed the last 2 years like a top-of-the-end guy. Last 3 years, he's been very good. He's been on par with some of these dudes. He's looking around at, the Raiders paying Max Crosby on an extension. The Steelers paying TJ Watt an extension and guaranteeing multiple years of that deal. Watching, and he's the same age as TJ Watt. Like, at least with Myles Garrett, you have the argument maybe a little bit younger or whatever. And, again, like, maybe you're not Myles Garrett. Maybe you're not number one, but maybe you're number 4 or 5 or 3 or 2. Whatever your argument is about Trey Hendrickson, dude, he was great last year. He was great the year before that. He's been very good for them on this contract. They gave him a 1-year extension. I think that might have been the big mistake a couple years ago. when he negotiated that. So he's going into this year, and it's like, all right, like you got a little bit of extra money. Then the argument was, hey, we will negotiate with you later. We will fix it. And now there's a stop up. Like they don't want to guarantee him more than 1 year or a little bit more than 1 year. I think he wants 2 years guaranteed. He's like, listen, man, I've been good for you guys. You guys got to benefit. You guys got to benefit. I'm not even asking for top money. I'm not asking for Micah Parsons money. I'm asking for like, can I be the 5th or 6th best paid DN with 2 years guaranteed? Is that too much to ask, man? Is it too much to ask? Like, maybe it is, but like DNs tend to last. It's not like, unless he like really gets injured. I mean, like, DNs can go until, like, they're 32, 33, 34. He might, like, you look at Von Miller, right? Von Miller, yes, he tore his ACL at a certain point during that contract, but, like, again, into his 30s, was playing very well and still is, like, a solid player. We saw him just sign with the Commanders. So, I don't know, Trey Hendrickson, it feels like a weird thing that they are fumbling right now. You got to get the guy in the building. You got to get him up to speed and get going and keep him healthy and upright. And by the way, pair him with maybe a couple of young studs, like a guy you drafted in the first round, like Shemar Stewart. Maybe you don't screw this one up too. So what's the issue with Shemar Stewart? It's just a rookie contract, right? Well, there are some clauses you can negotiate in these rookie contracts, especially first-round picks. A lot of the times it comes down to when you're getting paid your signing bonus, how much you get paid at a certain point, what percentage you get paid within the first year, the timing of it. And that's kind of been the issue right now, is that there is usually a trade-off, right? There's this clause that voids your guarantees because these rookie contracts are fully guaranteed. And a lot of these teams are like, listen, what if he does something that's detrimental to the team? What if he does something that's conduct detrimental to the team? We should be able to void some of those guarantees, right? And if I'm a player, I'm like, why should you be allowed to do that? But if you're going to agree to do that, okay, fine. But I want my signing bonus right away then. I want as much of my signing bonus before I start playing or by the time I start playing, because that might be the only money you get, right? And define conduct detrimental to a team. That's the problem, is you were dealing with a very like vague clause that they're going to throw in your face, and you don't know what happens down the line, what kind of crazy coaches want to throw stuff in there, what new GM comes in 2 years down the line who's like, I didn't draft this player, he just sucks. Why should I pay him this money? I'm just going to throw some conduct detrimental stuff. He's been detrimental as far as his conduct goes, and utilizing, there's also other elements of that. Like, can you do it for stuff that's only on the field? Can you do stuff that are off the field? Team activities. There's a lot of negotiating that goes on with these contracts. Clearly, his agent's not happy. Clearly, he's not happy. So, listen, I agree with Shemar Stewart. Like, if you want me to sign this void guarantee, which not like I will say most of the teams have it in the NFL, but they usually pay out the signing bonuses a lot quicker. That is the timeline for paying the signing bonus. It's a give and take. That's what this is. It's a negotiation. And the Bengals are like, no, we just want to go ahead and have our cake and eat it too because we're the Bengals. We're the Bengals, boys. No. You don't get to add this clause in that you've never had as a single part of your first-round picks contracts without adding in some kind of thing for your player to get out of this. That's not how a negotiation works, Mr. Brown. I digress. So the Bengals are fumbling the bag with 2 DNs. And what else do they have on the roster, right? I mean, like, they have Joseph Osai, Levi Osai. He was okay. He's a third-round pick. He's an eh. He's a third to fourth edge rusher. That's what you got. Very linear kind of guy, push the pocket a little bit, but he's not big, so he's not a power rusher, and he doesn't have a lot of lateral agility to him, so he's not getting around dudes. Like, he's not, kind of cutting the corner, turning the edge a lot. So he's not beating you with a bunch of moves. So I'm not sold on Joseph Osai as far as an edge rusher goes. Definitely not your number one. Oh, by the way, there's Miles Murphy in the room. You could use him, the first-round pick from, I don't know, it was a year or two ago. I feel like I haven't heard anything about Miles Murphy. I feel like he's on a milk carton in Cincinnati somewhere. I'm sure he's on the team. I just never hear anything about him anymore. Yeah, he hasn't really played to a high degree. You're lucky you have any kind of high-level players on that team, let's be honest, because they don't want to spend money. They haven't wanted to spend money. They were only happy spending money when they had Joe Burrow on a rookie contract, and so they had all their salary cap to play with. Now, because of these big contracts that are coming up and be competitive with the rest of the NFL, they have to pay some multiple year guarantees on some of these contracts, which is what they did with the Ja'Marr Chase contract. Finally getting on that, because if they were ahead of it last year, they would have been ahead on that contract. They would have been paying less than what Justin Jefferson's being paid. Now they're paying more. They could have been ahead on the T. Higgins deal. They didn't do that. I digress. You look at some of the D-line, other players beyond Trey Hendrickson and the rookie Shemar Stewart, which, again, we don't even know if Shemar Stewart's going to be good, but, this is part of the whole thing of drafting guys. This is part of the contract. They're fully guaranteed contracts. Yes, you could put these void clauses in there, but you have to get the player to agree to them, and usually how you get them to agree to them is give them their money sooner, because that's the one negotiating tactic you have is, hey, here's your signing bonus sooner. But they do have B.J. Hill to play D-tackle. That's cool, I guess. T.J. Slayton, they signed in free agency. Fine. Taven Bryant, cool. 3-tech guy, pocket pusher. Really not a 3-down player, so that's not helpful at all. Linebacker room. They got a lot of linebackers that are okay, I feel like. It feels like there's a lot of investment in that linebacker room, right? They got Logan Wilson still. They got Joe Giles Harris, who, is a depth guy, but maybe could step up a little bit. And then Oren Burks they signed in free agency, who I think might be a sneaky player. We'll see what happens with him. That might be a smart move. And then they also drafted Demetrius Knight in the second round this year. So, they have a lot of linebackers. I'm not gonna lie. It feels like back in the days where they had a King Davis Gaither and a few other dudes. It feels like they have quite a few linebackers in that room. Safety, they got Geno Stone and Jordan Battle, who was a third rounder a year or two ago. So, Geno Stone was from the Ravens. He was a later round pick. He developed pretty well for the Ravens, but again, I don't think he was being used to the best of his abilities in Cincinnati last year. It felt like he was trying to be, they were trying to utilize him as, as a safety that's a little bit more too high or single high, and just that's not really where he's been utilized the best, I think, for them. Dax Hill, I think, has developed a little bit as a corner. Now they might be moving him back to safety or keeping him in corner. I don't know what their plans with Dax Hill. It feels like he's moved to another position every year, and I never quite know what he's playing. But at least he has kind of developed into a solid player, so it doesn't feel like it was a burnt pick. But, okay, just you got to fill out the rest of the roster, guys. Cam Taylor-Britt, another corner there, solid depth dude. Not a lot of, shock or awe to that guy. Was there another corner? DJ Turner's played pretty solid. They also have Marco Wilson, formerly of the Cardinals, who's never played well, but I figured I'd just throw him in there for the funsies of it. So, yeah, that defense, not exciting. Not exciting at all. Let's talk offense, because that's the fun part of the Cincinnati Bengals. You have Joe Burrow, you have T. Higgins, you have Ja'Marr Chase. You also had the other guy they extended this year, which was Mike Gesicki, who they seem to get some pretty value out of. I think it seems like they like him a little bit in that room. I like him-ish, I guess. It's, if you're using him as as a piece of your weaponry, I think he's fine. Andre Yoshivas has kind of been the solid replacement to who was the dude they used to have there all the time, who was basically the slot-only dude? I used to know his name. Used to know his name very well. Used to be a good guy for fantasy for a hot 2 seconds, especially when T. Higgins went down. I'll remember it 3 years from now. Anyway, Yoshivas, solid slot player, kind of has stepped up to that gameplay. He's not you don't want to really rely on him, but he's solid. Solid is fine. Solid is good for them. For your third dude to be solid is a smart thing. They also have Jermaine Burton, who was a third rounder last year, who fell due to personality concerns, let's say. And it sounds like he's had personality concerns in Cincinnati. Now, to be fair, guy's mature. It sounds like there's a little bit of maturing going on. in that locker room with him and seeing that, the other guys around him are getting paid and he's going to have some talent around him. And he's been making plays at least first couple days of camp. So maybe he is being like, wait a second, I have a chance to make some names for myself, make some money in a couple of years. So I don't mind it. Again, their receiving room's kind of fun. I'm not knocking that. Eric All, second-year tight end. There's some talk that maybe he'll take a step forward as well. Drew Sample's still there, I hear. I think he's still doing things. So there's that guy. He's another tight end. Running back-wise, Chase Brown, exciting breakaway player. Very good for fantasy if you're a fantasy buff, which is fine. I'm a big fantasy buff myself. He's good. I'm a big Chase Brown fan. I would chase all of his Brown. No, that sounded terrible. That sounded horrible. Let's not ever say that again. Don't clip that up ever. Let's go with the rest of that running back room. Samaje Perine? Zach Moss. Okay, pretty solid dude. Could get you some things if Chase goes down. But it sounds like they figured out that Chase Brown is the better running back to Zach Moss. But, two guys in that room, not bad to have. That, one solid dude who can kind of go in between the tackles, another dude who has some breakaway speed to him and Chase Brown. So I dig it. Offensive line. Feels like the big every year with them. Feels like it's a never-ending story of, the Bengals haven't had a good offensive line for a while. Feels like they keep trying, and it just never really works out. They have Orlando Brown. He's been solid-ish, not great-ish, as much as he's been paid. Okie dokie, then. There's Ted Karras. He's been solid. He's been a solid center. Guards. It sounds like they have Cody Ford playing guard at right guard, at least right now in camp. And to be fair, he didn't play guard for them last year at all. He played tackle at points at left and right. He's kind of more of a spot swing guy. They moved on from Alex Kappa. He started having kind of a downtrend to his career. They replaced him with Lucas Patrick, who was on the New Orleans Saints last year and then was on the Chicago Bears prior to that, and had a couple of down years there. And also prior to that was with the Green Bay Packers. What I'm noticing with the trend with him is he seems to work better in the outside zone, Clint Kubiak, LaFleur kind of style offense, because you look at his OCs last year in New Orleans, it was Clint Kubiak, outside zone. When he was with the Green Bay Packers, LaFleur, and those are his best years. When he was with the Bears, it was Shane Waldron. No, not Waldron. Luke Getsy. It wasn't even Waldron. So, there you go. That explains some issues for them, it sounds like. I digress. I don't need to keep on pooping on Luke Getsy. I feel like it's been enough as it is. Who else do we have here? Oh, right. Dylan Fairchild, who they drafted in the third round. I think that was an okay draft pick. I don't think he was the guard that I would have taken from Georgia. I was more of a Tate Ratledge fan. I think they could have, listen, you could have argued they should have taken Tate Ratledge where they took Demetrius Knight, and I would have said you were right. But they didn't. They decided to take a linebacker and then took the other guard. I think they took this guy ahead of Jared Wilson, who's the center, who got a lot more hype because he had a very athletic profile, went to the Patriots. I tend to not always buy into that hype as necessarily as the athleticism goes, but for offensive line, athletic offensive linemen tend to stick around and often develop because they could kind of keep up with the NFL athletes. So I wouldn't have hated it if they had taken one of the other two guys from Georgia instead. We'll see how it plays out with Fairchild. He's going to probably be competing for left guard with Lucas Patrick. I don't know what Lucas Patrick's going to be doing. He's going to probably play one of those spots eventually. But again, solid depth signing. I think it was a nice way of addressing moving on from Kappa, was to spend a draft pick and then also spend some money. They only signed 3 free agents. So between TJ Slayton, Oren Burks, and Lucas Patrick, and they moved on from Kappa. That was really kind of the biggest release that they had. I don't know if there's really any other things. He's brought back BJ Hill, knew that stuff already. Other offensive linemen, Marius Mims, year 2, right? Dude that they had some athleticism to him that everybody was very high on, but also had some health concerns. And look, he was not healthy last year. Kind of trends to the NFL. Maybe that's why keep an eye on those guys. Maybe that's why you don't always necessarily draft them. But hey, you know what? They wanted to spend a pick on an offensive lineman. I can't blame them. And he's a dancing bear. That's what he is. He's a big dancing bear, and maybe he ends up being healthy in the NFL. And we all look like Dumby and Dumbos for doubting him, because I don't doubt him. I think, like, listen, if he stays healthy, I think he could end up being very good. I think there were moments last year that he showed that he could probably be the solid right tackle that they need. Honestly, it feels like they have two Orlando Browns there, which if you have Joe Burrow and his athleticism, his pocket presence, his awareness, and also his ability to get the ball out quick, to be able to read defenses, and to be able to get the ball to Chase and Higgins and the other weapons there, I don't think having middling offensive linemen who are okay and solid are going to be too much of a problem, as long as it's a solid offensive line. Like, just has to be middling. This is the whole, like, get to the average, right? Because they're not going to be grinding it out. They can grind it out if they want to, but they don't have to. Teams are not going to be, filling up the box against them, I feel like. So they will get those moments of being able to utilize empty boxes and, a quick running back like Chase Brown. And again, I kind of want to say the Bengals are on an upward trend, and I was ready to say that because there was all the rumor. I keep on saying every 3 weeks it feels like it's a rotation of, oh look, Trey Hendrickson's they're closer with Trey Hendrickson, they're further away than Trey Hendrickson, they're closer, they're further, they're closer. It's your mother, he's your sister, it's your dad, it's your mother. I don't know, man. I feel like it's always mixed messages with the Bengals, especially on contracts. And they're the team that, again, had the Carson Palmer experience go boo-boo, bye-bye. Like, you remember that a couple years ago? Not a couple, it's a long time ago now. And to be fair, that's one of the things that I think I will acknowledge is that just because something happened 10 years ago with Carson Palmer does not mean they are ready to just capitulate and be like, listen, we're going to do the same thing. This is a team that knows it's competing. This is a team that knows it's close to competing. And this is a team that looks at what they have and they can go, let's get Trey Hendrickson back in the building. Let's figure shit out with Shemar Stewart. They should have been taking care of that sooner. But, listen, it's July. It's not August. If this goes into August, I'm going to be far more concerned. Probably will be. But, resolve it. That's it. Give Trey Hendrickson 2 years of guarantees. He's going to play until he's 32. I can almost guarantee he's going to play until he's 32. And he's going to be playing pretty well until he's 32. He might not play at the highest level, but you've gotten 3 really good years out of him already at very good value. You could probably negotiate this deal into a very good value still. So just do it. Figure it out. And then get Shemar Stewart back in the building. Whatever you have to do. Throw that clause out. Keep the clause in and give him more signing bonus, but get it done, Bengals. Stop fumbling this stuff because you have a terrible defense. You need it to at least be middling so you don't get burnt out and you have to score 30,000 points every week and then actually miss the playoffs again by a 9-8 BS tie-breaking mother jamming BS. You're fun. You have fun stuff going on there. And clearly you acknowledge it because you've invested, you've done things, you've changed. The Bengals are the team that's changing, right? That's the thing. We do have to acknowledge the Bengals are changing their tune. They're just still very darn stubborn. It's you know what it is? The Bengals are the boyfriend that is starting to get their stuff together. But then all of a sudden, with the Shemar Stewart contract and the Trey Hendrickson contract, it's oh, come on, man. You had me. I thought you would change. You saw with the Jamar Chase thing, you're oh, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, oh my God, it's going to happen. They're going to go for a run. They're going to fix the defense. They're going to do it. And then the Shemar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson stuff happens, and you're guys, why'd you have to? I thought you changed. Just change!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. About the past, about the future.